Before we get started, we'd like you to go to the link below and download so you can follow along as we talk about pre-production, production, and post-production.
Hey guys, before we begin, just want to let you know I am a little under the weather, so if you hear it in my voice, I apologize, but we're going to try to get through this as clear as possible. Today we are working on our edits for our interviews. Before we begin editing though, we need to make sure that we have a few things checked off on the list. The first thing is your topic research and your interview questions, okay? We need those things at the ready in case we need to reference back to them. We also need your A roll, which would be your interview, and then we need your B roll, which is your supporting footage. Okay, you guys got all that? All right, let's begin. If you take a look on the screen that we have open right now, we're in a program called Adobe Premiere Pro. There are many editing programs out there. There's other programs like iMovie, Final Cut Pro, Sony Vegas. There are so many of them. I like Premiere Pro personally. It's just a great program. It's very intuitive. It's got a lot of options when you're editing, and it links up with other Adobe products so that we can use in the project. So today we're going to be making our very own interview project. If you're looking on the screen right now, you can see that we've already created a sequence. That's what this is called. And what you're seeing on screen right now is actually the final created sequence, but we're actually going to recreate some of these elements so you can see how we got to this point. And just for your reference, we're going to be looking at this to see what we are creating today.
The physical act of axe throwing is taking an axe and in a safe manner, directing its rotations into that target so the blade hits first. Axe throwing is safe. The reason being is that one, we actually have an axe throwing coach with you every step of the way. They'll be there to actually teach you, one, how to throw it, how to be safe about it, and to watch and make sure that everybody else is safe around you.
We're just going to go over a little bit of the program. And if you don't want to take a look at this, you can skip ahead a little bit. But we're going to focus right now on a few elements going on right now so you get an idea of what we're working with. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of different panels in here. We have our effects controls here. We have our screen right here, so what we're seeing and what we're actually editing and putting together. We have more effects on the sides over here. We've got our sound waves, so if you guys were seeing we have our audio waves right here. And as you can see when the video was playing, that this was rising up and down. We'll talk about that a little later. We have our timeline right here. And then over here, we have what's called our media bin. Okay, this essentially just organizes all of your project files in one area so you don't lose it. Let's create a new sequence together. Okay, so we're just going to right click in this media bin area. Okay, you're going to see all these different things come up, but then we're going to go over to new item and then we're going to go to sequence. So we're going to go to our settings over here and you're going to see all these different numbers and tabs. Don't let this freak you out. Okay, we just want to focus on two things in here. This right here, and then this. Okay, we're going to be working today in 23.976, otherwise known as 24 frames a second. Okay, this is for cinematic value. A lot of films and movies are done in this format. The news is usually done in the 29.97 format. So if you're doing this for news, I'd recommend doing this. Now, frames per second, if you don't know what that means, frames is just another term for pictures. Okay, so right here, it's 24 frames per second. It's also known as 24 pictures per second. We're going to be going in the 23.976 format, and our frame size is going to be our regular 1080 HD. Okay, so to do that, we're going to switch these numbers. So we're going to do 1920 here. We're going to hit tab, and then we're going to do 1080 here. Okay. We're just going to click off to the side and you're going to see this number change right here, 16:9. Okay, that's a standard format for television and other viewing. You don't have to memorize these. Anytime you see this, we just need to be working in this sequence right here with 1920 by 1080 and 23.976 frames per second. Then we're going to go down to our sequence name. Now this is also important because when we're organizing our files, which is huge when you're editing, to keep everything organized and easy to find, we're going to name this test. We're going to hit OK. by hitting enter. And now as you can see in our media bin, and then to remind you how this works, I'm going to hit this little tab up here, and it's going to take us to all 3 of our folders. Now, in sequences, I had this open, and when we created a new sequence, the test was put in here. So now if I go click to interview, there's our interview sequence. If I go to main sequence, that's the one I was showing you earlier. Now, but we're going to stay in test. You can also get to these things by hitting these tabs up here. Okay. Also, what you saw on screen right there was an autosave. So typically a lot of these programs autosave for you, but it's always good to check because sometimes programs glitch out and you want to make sure that you are saving regularly on your projects. Okay. To do that, go up to File and hit Save. Okay. Or if it's a new project, go to File, Save As, and then up here will come up and you can save it within your computer. So, but we're already working in an existing file, so it's already in there, it's organized. It is a blank timeline. Again, this is named timeline because if you go up here, you can see all the different time frames right here. I'm going to take this little piece right here, and as I click and drag, it's going to get closer in. Maybe to show a better example, if I go back to the interview sequence and I do the same thing, you'll see that the clips will get bigger. And then as we bring this in, we go closer in, and now you can see more detail in your clip. Now this is important if you're doing very small cuts or more tedious work, and you'll probably see me do a little bit of that as we go. Now I'm going to mark it by hitting this add marker. Okay, and now you can see that green marker. You'll see these in here as well, and I'll explain that here in just a little bit. So we've marked this, and if you wanted to, you could do the same. Just go to the beginning of your timeline and mark the beginning. So now you know, if you zoom out, you'll know not to go past this marker. In order for us to continue, what we need to do first is break up our interview. Okay, so this would be your A roll. So I'm going to go to our interview sequence. Essentially what I did was I put in the entire interview file in here and then broke it up into different segments. In fact, what I can do is I can even show you how I did that real quick. So what I did is I go to my footage and I find the clip of him speaking. So I'm going to click and hold and then drag it. And as you can see, now it's going to be on my timeline. I'm still holding and dragging, and we're going to drag it right there. Now I can see that there he is again. The screen is very zoomed in. And the reason being is because we're working in a 1920 by 1080. Remember that ratio that we talked about earlier? So we're working in a 1080 HD project file. The footage, however, was taken in 4K, which is 4 times the amount of HD, hence why it's so zoomed in. What we want to do in this instance is click on the clip, and then you'll see this is where we use our effect controls. The only one we're going to be focusing on is scale. Now we see we're at 100. Now if I click and hold that number, depending which way I can go, I go either zooming way in or zooming way out. We don't want it to look like this at 15. And we don't want it to look like this, zoomed in at 134. We want it to be exactly filling the frame, in which in this case, you just find that place. So until it's filled on both the sides, the left and right sides, and the top and bottom. So we're going to keep going until we find that spot right there. Okay, so now if we go back to this clip, we can see now it's the same. Now if we drag this over, you can see that this is a clip all by itself, but it's different colors from this other stuff on the left side. What we did is we actually took the audio from the mic that he had on, if you remember from the last few episodes, and we actually matched it to this audio, which was coming through on the camera, and that was from the boom mic. We don't want to use that audio because it was so far away from him at the time. We want to use the mic that was on him, which is similar to what I'm wearing right now, which is called lavalier mic. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this right here in this corner, and then we're going to go over to our audio. Now there's our audio clip from when he was getting audio on the lavalier mic. So we're going to simply take this, we're going to drag it over, and we're going to put it into our timeline. Now you'll notice that they are not the same length, and they're probably not going to match up. Now if I turn this up, which is dragging, see this little line right here, Control Z is how I undid that. If I'm clicking and holding on this, you can see that I can drag it up and down. And you see that little number popping up right here. If it's a high number, it's louder. And if it's a lower number or negative, it's quieter. Right now, we're at 0, which isn't that loud. So we want to just play with it a little bit. So we're going to put it at the top and see how loud that is. So you can hear 2 different audios going right now. We don't want to keep this audio right here in the blue clip. We want to use this audio instead. To do this, we're going to get rid of the blue audio. We're going to do that simply by right-clicking, and then we're going to go to this little word called unlink. Now you'll see that they are 2 separate things. If I drag this over, it's not going to come with it. Control Z to undo that. Now we want to delete this clip, but first, don't make this mistake, because if you do this, you won't be able to match up the audio. So we want to undo that, and we want to undo the unlinking, okay? We want to make sure that we've remembered this step. So we're going to highlight, see how I'm doing this? I'm just clicking and dragging. I'm going to right click, and then there's a little word called synchronize. So we're going to synchronize it. Now you got all these different things. Right now we're just going to have our audio selected, and then track channel 1. Now we're going to process the audio, and you're going to see that it's processing 1, 2 out of 2. And that's just, it's finding the information from the old audio clip and then matching it with the new one. And you'll see here in just a few minutes, or seconds hopefully, that these will link up automatically. Now sometimes this doesn't work, sometimes it can act up a little bit, but now you can see, now these are linked. So this point, we unlink this clip, just like we did before. And then we click on this clip, we delete it by hitting the delete key. And now what we're going to do, seeing that this clip is longer than the video clip, we're going to match this to match the video. So don't click and drag this. You're going to go to the end here where it shows this little arrow, and then you're going to click and hold and then drag it. Now we matched up with this. It's automatically going to snap. To turn that on and off, by the way, there's a little magnet here. So if I turn, right now it's blue, which means it's on. If I undo that, now it's not blue and it's not on. So now I'm just going to do this and see how it's not snapping to anything anymore. Like now I can't get it really exact. Click that. And now I can snap either to this or that. In this case, we want to do this. We want to do the same thing at the end. Click and drag. And then there we go. So now it's matched up. The last step we have to do here is highlight both of them just by clicking and dragging. You're going to right click and then link. And now if we click on one, they're both going to highlight. And then we can just drag this up just by clicking and holding and dragging. Okay, and now it's one piece, just like this here. So this right here, what you're seeing, is the same thing as this, except this one's just all cut up. So I'm going to just delete this because we don't need this anymore. We already have this one. Everybody kind of has their own way of doing this, and I have my own way of doing it. I like to find my music first, and that's just because music is easy to be timed. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this arrow right here, and then we're going to go to our music folder. Now I've already downloaded the music file that I like. Now we're going to click and drag. Okay, it's a lot of clicking and dragging in Premiere Pro, and it's very easy, it's simple. So I'm just clicking, holding, and then now you can see this little hand, and then we're just going to go. Now on the timeline, I'm going to highlight this for you right away too. We have our little words right here, V1, V2, V3, A1, A2, A3, A4. A stands for audio. So anything below this line right here, see this line is thicker than the rest? Anything that's below that line and has the words A, then it means audio. So all of our audio clips are automatically going to be put in here. If we look over here, we'll notice that if I try to bring one of these audio clips up, I can't do that. It only takes the video one up. And the same thing, if I try to go down, audio only goes down, but the video does not. Control Z. Now go back to our test. So you'll see that all of these, we have 4 We have 4 lines that we can put audio on. Now you can always add more too. You can do this by right-clicking in here and add tracks. So you can add as many as you want. We're going to cancel out of that though, because we don't need to do that right now. What we're going to do though, is we're going to put the music on our 3rd line. Okay, and that's just to show you, because when we're using our audio from the interview, you'll notice it's appearing on A1. And that's a way to stay organized. Like I said, you can do this many different ways, but this is how I like to keep things organized, because I know that my audio is going to be on the top line at all times. Sometimes it'll be on the 2nd line, but those first 2 lines are the ones I always want to have my main audio on. So if I go over to test, you'll notice that it's not on A1 or A2, but on A3. Now to see this, see how it's kind of skinny and it doesn't look like this, but you can actually see this is what we call a waveform. So we're going to go back to our test, and in here we're simply just going to double click. And then it's going to expand this for us. Now you can also do this by, see if I hover over top of these lines, I can drag, okay, and I can make them bigger or smaller if I want. So, but in this case, we're just gonna go a little smaller. I just hit Control Z, and we're gonna drag it back in. So now if I go back, double click, it's gonna go back to this, and then now we're at this point. I'm gonna play it again, and I want you to watch this area right here, okay? Now you'll see that the music is hitting way up here at 0. Red means that it can peak, is what we call it, which means that your audio is going to sound distorted if it gets too loud. And being that we're putting interview over top of this music, we don't want the music to be this loud. Going back to our main sequence here that we have, you'll notice that there's a few line changes in here. And what I'm going to show you right now is the level that we put it at. So it looks like we had it set for 10. So we're going to put this down to 10. And that's just simply by clicking and dragging that line right here. I'm just clicking and dragging until it goes to -10. Now you can do the same thing here by going up to this effects tab right here and switching your level. Okay, see how that went back to -10? But if I change that again and keep looking in that same area, if I change it to 0, you'll notice this will change it to 0 as well. So now if I click this and I type -10, then it automatically switches. This also creates what's called a keyframe. Keyframes are essentially points at which your clips can change or maneuver. You can use them for a lot of different things. Animators use them all the time, and we're just going to be using them to basically take the times that when Cole is speaking to turn it down, and when he's not speaking to turn it up, okay? Like what we did right here. You can see that there's a couple keyframes here, a couple keyframes there, and you'll see that the lines are different, and they're straight too. We're gonna click and drag this again, zoom us in. You'll notice that there's all these different waveforms, so you'll notice it's much quieter, which is what we want, because we want to be able to hear Cole talking over top the music. We're going to take a piece of our interview. Okay, now there's a part in the interview where he introduces himself. Now what we want to do is take this part. All I did to get it to this point was that I split the clips. So see how they're 2 separate clips and this is separate from this? So to demonstrate on this clip right here, if I wanted to split it, say right here. So hitting the C key, you're going to see this come up. This little blade. And then when I hover over top, you're going to see it changes. Now with that magnet key on, make sure this is on when you're cutting. You're going to cut, and then now you see now there are 2 separate clips. Now if I keep playing it and I want to stop it at a certain point, I'll hit spacebar so I can play it. Still with the C key, so I'm still on the blade. We're just going to cut it. And then now I have that clip by itself. So now if I want to move it, it'll just be that clip. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this. Right click and go up to copy, right there. Now we're going to go over to our test. So in order to paste, you can do this a few different ways. You can either go up to edit and paste, and then it'll put your clip in here. I'm gonna Control Z to take that away. Or you can hit Control V, which is right next to C. Control C is to copy, and Control V is to paste. So now we have this playing. And what we want to do is, let's take a look back at our main sequence here. So you'll see that we had a few different B-roll clips, kind of establishing what we're about to watch. And then if we zoom in a little closer, you'll notice that there was a little fade in the beginning. And you'll see once again these keyframes are here with this volume adjusted. So we're going to go back to our test. And we're going to double click to expand this again. And then we're going to go zoom way in till we get about there. Give yourself some room so you can see that there's an empty space right here between where your audio starts, because once it's flat, it means that there's no audio coming through. Now, this part is a little bit more advanced, but you're going to hold Control, and you're going to see that this little thing comes up. If I let go, it's not, but if I hold on to it, it's going to keep it up like this. And it only happens when I hover over the line. So where I want the audio to start is about right here. So I'm going to click while holding Control, and you'll see this keyframe popped up. In order for this to be quiet on this side, I'm going to hit Control again. See how we don't want to hover over like this, because if we do this, then you're just going to be editing the one keyframe. All right, Control Z. Still holding Control, you're going to click right here on this line, and then you're simply just going to drag it down like this. You can free draw, put it wherever you want. We're going to drag it all the way as far as down as we can, and then we're going to go a little close. So see how it changes if you get right underneath. Okay, we want to be right about there. It's always nice to have a little slant in your line. I like that too. It's a little bit more gradual. Now we want to go towards the end of the clip, so that's where we want to stop. So holding Control again, make a keyframe, and then make another keyframe, holding Control, click. And then I'm just going to drag the right one. See, it does the same thing. Now, don't let that freak you out. It's just these keyframes are all connected. Okay, so but we want to make just a little slant again, just like we did over here. I like a gradual increase and decrease in audio. It just makes it sound a little bit more professional and put together. Now, what we want this clip to have is it to go right on the music. So we're just going to click and drag and try to just match it by eye right here. See that imaginary line? If I put this line, if we wanted to get more specific, we could put it right here and see how it lines up nice. Now, what we want to do next is we want to add that little fade that we had. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our effects tab in the top right, and then you'll see all these different folders. We're going to go over to the video transitions. And all I'm doing is just clicking, not clicking and dragging, just click. Now what I used was in the dissolve folder, and it's just called cross dissolve. So I'm going to click and drag. So just do this, click and drag, and then right on top. Now let's see what that does. Okay, to do this, you just simply hover over top with your mouse, click and drag. Now, I like mine to be a little faster, so I either like this 0.20 or this 1 right here. And you can see that by the left number moving. And we're gonna go down to the 1. Let's see what that looks like. In the next section, we're gonna disregard the music and everything because we're just gonna focus on how to put A-roll and B-roll together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our interview, and this doesn't have to be exact, okay? Right now what we're doing is we're just playing. We're just gonna go to the very beginning, and we're gonna go to one of his clips that he says here. So that's a really good clip that we've used of him. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy that by Control-C again, or right-click and copy, going over to our test, and we're just gonna click somewhere random in the timeline. It doesn't have to be right next to the other one that we just did. Control-V, and now you'll see that that's our audio clip that we just copied and pasted. For the time being is we want the music to be muted. So we're just gonna go over to the audio where that track is, and we're gonna mute it, mute track. Now that doesn't take the music away, it just mutes it temporarily. So right there, he's talking about a few different things. He's talking about elevating to the next level, okay, with axe throwing. Save your project, or if you want to use a shortcut on the keyboard like we've been using, it's Control S. So I'll do that, and then it saves. So he talks about customer service, class, and the place itself, okay? So now we have to think of certain clips that we want to include at that part when he's talking about these things. If we go back to our footage bin, you'll notice that I've put in all the B-roll that we had filmed. And you guys saw some of that in the last episode. We need footage that's gonna actually show him working with a customer. The clips are just playing little previews, so you can kind of see it's kind of nice. That way you don't have to keep clicking on every clip individually. But now if I look up here, it looks like Cole right here is working with someone, and it looks like a customer. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna click and drag. Now it's a pretty long clip. So one thing to be careful of, and I'm just gonna zoom out here so you can see, sometimes these clips run a little long. And I did this, okay, it's good. But if I did this, drag again, and then I put it over top, you can see now it's over top of the other clips. And then if I drag it over, well, it just deleted it. Okay, so you have to be careful of where you're putting your clips because you might accidentally delete one of them. I personally always like to go to the outside. See how you have your marker here at 3 minutes, anything past that, we don't want to put in. Okay, another way to make sure of this is if you right click somewhere up here above on the timeline and you can hit mark out, and then you can just drag that over to your 3 minute mark and see it snaps real nice. And then if you go all the way to your beginning, you mark in, and now you can really see all the things that are happening within this timeline. We're not going to use this entire clip. Part of it that we wouldn't want to use is this, okay? Because it's not really giving us information of what we want to tell with the customer service. So we want a clip of him actually helping her. He's standing right next to her, showing her how to underhand. There's one part right here. See how he's helping her right there? So we're gonna find the end where we like the ending of that clip. This right here is the ending. So hitting the C key, we're gonna cut it, and we're just clicking, we're not dragging or anything. And then we're gonna click and drag this and go to a part that we like to start, and let's say right there. So we're gonna hit C, and we're gonna cut. Now we have found our clip that we want, but we don't want the audio from that. To do this, to get rid of it, we're gonna do exactly what we did last time. We're gonna right click, and then we're gonna unlink, same time as before, and we're gonna delete that. Now you'll see it only did that to this one clip because it's separate from the others now. It's its own clip. But now you can see it's a video clip, so it won't go in the audio, but it will go in the video. So we're gonna just drag it over here just for now, and then we're gonna zoom in. And now we want to place this over top of when he was saying that. So we're going to click and drag, and now let's play it. And it's not going to be perfect. We're going to adjust it as we go. But here's what it looks like just by itself right now. Okay, so that looks pretty good. But we want less of this clip, obviously, because he's talking about other things. So we're just gonna make it a little smaller. We're gonna go right up to when he says the class. So now we have that clip showing customer service. Now, if we zoom back out, we can delete these leftover clips because we don't need that anymore, just by clicking, dragging, and then deleting. Now he talks about class, okay? So when you hear words like class, you think neat, you think elegant, you can even think fancy. So we want to find a clip that's going to show something like that. This is a good clip that we can use. So we're going to zoom out here again, and then we're going to click and drag this clip from our media bin and do the same thing we did before. So right there is kind of like where I like it. So we're going to do this right here. So we're going to end it about there, hit C again, and then click. So you can cut the clip. So we're gonna hit C again, we're gonna hit, and we're gonna click. And then to actually, how to get back to the move key, you're gonna use V key, V. And that just takes you back to your regular mouse. Same thing as before. I'm going to right click, unlink, and then delete the audio portion of that because we don't need that. And then we're going to take this clip, we're going to zoom out again, take this clip and go drag it over top. And you'll see I have that magnet still on, so it's snapping to everything. Okay, we're going to snap it close, but we're going to zoom in so we can get a little bit more specific. And then we're just going to click and drag over top. Now we'll see what happens when I do that. So right here we can see him, and we're just putting it over top. And now it's that clip. The way Premiere works, and a lot of timelines work this way, is whichever clip is on top is the one that's going to be showing. Okay, so you'll notice that anytime on the V1, I usually like to put interview on because we can overlay our B-roll over top of our A-roll. We can just leave these as big clips and then just put our B-roll over top and then just cut those. And then he talks about the environment itself. Okay, so when he's talking environment of axe throwing, he's talking about the exciting times it is with when people are coming, when they're throwing. So let's find something that shows the environment here. Okay, so we're gonna go to one of these clips. Deleting these clips, because we don't need these anymore. Again, it's kind of in our out of range area. We're just gonna take this, we're gonna just look it over. Okay, now right away you can see the other clips were slow motion, so they didn't have audio, whereas this one does. Unlink, and then delete the audio. We want to pick a part in this where it's not still. So we want maybe to start here. And same thing, just clicking and dragging to make it the amount that we want. And what we're actually going to do is we're just going to zoom out here, and then we're going to take this clip and drag it over top. So we're going to zoom in. Now we're going to see what we're going to do with this clip. We want the music to be at a good level, so when he's talking, we can actually hear him. There are a few different ways to do this. If we're going to drag this down, okay, we're just going to drag it down pretty quiet to start. And we're going to see what that sounds like. So now it's too quiet. We still want to hear the music, so we want to bring it up a little bit. So that sounds pretty good, leveled together. Obviously, we'd probably do a little bit more tinkering and more specific correction. But for now, I think all I want you to understand right now is what we're doing with our B-roll and our A-roll, and to make it all come together. We put B-roll over top, helping show what those things he was talking about. So in this case, when he was talking about customer service, we put a clip of him working with the customer. If we go to our next clip, he was talking about class. Okay, so we found something that made the space look really cool or really neat. And in this case, we had a shot of the outside of the building. And then when he's talking about environment, we want to show people in the space playing and hanging out and talking. That's ambience, okay? So those are why we chose some of the different clips. Now, when you're working on your own projects, I highly recommend that you use clips that help tell that story as well. We want our audience to really feel the atmosphere and the really cool, the vibe, if you will, of the space, and showing them having fun, because who's ever watching might put themselves in that place and that they're gonna have some fun.
Here are a few additional tips when it comes to editing. Regularly save your projects.
There's some things to keep in mind with your project as we go on, like I had mentioned. The one being that you always want to continue saving. So we're going to hit File and Save again, or your Control S.
Organize files inside of your editing program.
You'll notice that a lot of what I was doing in here also was organizing. Even before, if I pulled up my folder right here, this is what this folder looks like and how I was able to get all these files in here. In fact, if we go to footage, for instance, we click on this folder, you'll see that there's a few different types of folders with dates, and one of them was a cell phone. So if I click on a cell phone, these are just different videos that we've gotten with our cell phone. Okay, but then I know that they're coming from the cell phone.
Do not overload your files with too many effects.
One thing that's very important to keep in mind when you're doing interviews, don't overdo it with the effects. We're gonna go back to our main project file. Okay, this is the one that we've already completed. Now, you'll see in the beginning, we had a title for him. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It looks neat. Good example of how we represent ourselves at the space and as a company.
Sort your interviews first.
One thing that we had talked about right away at the beginning was sort your interview first. Okay, so what I had already done before we started this project together is I already went through the entire interview, which is about, let's see, about 18 minutes or so. And I went through and I found the best clips and segments that I thought would really fit the video. And you can see that if we go back to our main sequence, our project was no longer than 2 minutes. So we were able to keep all of this down, an 18-minute interview condensed into less than 2 minutes. And that's what you're trying to achieve with your projects, okay? You're trying to find the best pieces and the best parts of when they're talking and make sure that it makes sense in your story as well when you're using those.
Less is sometimes more.
Sometimes less is more. Okay, so when we say that, it's, again, following this scheme of being clean, not many effects. When you're trying to show your B-roll, you don't have to put all these crazy transitions, and typically in interviews, the only types of transitions that you're really going to use are either dissolve or straight cut.
Make sure that the music fits your story.
One thing that you need to keep in mind as well when you're working on your interviews is making sure that the music fits properly. Okay, so it's kind of this gritty guitar strumming sound, but it's not anything crazy. It still fits the space. Be sure to use music that actually fits your story.
Keep an eye on the length of your project so it doesn't get too long.
Keep an eye on the length of your project. That's a huge one, especially when you're doing interviews and especially for news. Just because you recorded it doesn't mean you have to put it in the project. When you're editing, you're gonna have to accept that some of those talking points or questions just doesn't work anymore for your story. So don't feel scared to cut those things if you feel that they don't fit anymore.
And one of the most important ones is getting open and honest feedback on how your project looks.
When you release these projects out to the world, they're out there from now on, and they're a part of your digital footprint. So if you're telling a story about somebody, especially in this instance, if we were telling a story, a personal story about Cole, we'd check with Cole first before we released it out to the world. I know as artists, sometimes we attach ourselves to our work, but when it comes to video making and you're making videos, even if they're for yourself, it's still good to get that feedback just in case, because they might see something that you don't. What we showed you today was just a little sneak preview or portion of what you can do in these projects, but it's in no way the same of what you're going to probably experience. Even if you are using the same program, you're certainly not going to be doing the same things I do. If you find a way that's more efficient for you in your time, then do it. If it's not the exact same way that we did it, that's okay. These programs are here specifically so you can tailor it to what you want in your projects. So let's say you come to the end of your edit and you want to export your project. Then you're going to go up to File, and then you're going to go to Export, okay? And then just Media. And this works the same for a lot of areas of filmmaking and different programs as well. We're going to do this H.264. Now our preset here, we get a lot of different presets. Okay, if we wanted to put it to YouTube or Facebook or just a high quality video of the file, then you can choose any of those you want. In this case, we're going to do high quality 1080p because we're going to use it for multiple projects, or multiple platforms, I should say. Now right here, we want to make sure that both these are checked, export video and audio. If you have one of these unchecked, so if I uncheck export video, then it's not going to export the video. If I go to this, it says output name, or in this case, it's just a fancy word for final project name. Right here, you can see that it's going to save to my completed files folder. And inside my completed files, I have videos. Now I already have one right here, so it's already done. But if you wanted to rename it, you can do, for us, it's going to be Cole Interview. Okay, if we wanted to do that name, we would just hit save. We scroll down and we could see this none of you have to change or touch or adjust. It's all ready to go. You're just gonna hit this though right here. I like to use this, the use maximum render quality. That's just ensuring that whatever project file that you're going to export is gonna be at the top quality possible. And then you'll see right here the estimated file size. When you hit export, I'm not gonna hit it right now, but when you hit export, you're gonna be prompted with a screen that essentially shows you that it's working through. And then you're just gonna make sure to be patient and wait for it. Now, something I'd recommend while you're exporting, don't do anything else on your computer, let it do its thing. You're gonna wanna make sure that your computer uses all its power for that one thing, because sometimes it can be interrupted and it can potentially glitch out. And then once it's done, it's gonna show up in your files. Okay, so if I go back to our completed files, videos, and then right here, so when we exported first, it's gonna show up as this. And so if I double click, and then it's gonna be pulled over here. So it looks good. So our file's then ready to go to distribute to whatever platform we want, TikTok, YouTube, whatever we want. The only other piece that I would talk on is the colors, okay? Right here, what I have is called an adjustment layer. And this essentially just takes the information from your camera. And then if you add a layer to this, so in this case, we're gonna go over to this side, we're gonna go to Lumetri color, and then we're gonna go to creative. Now these are presets, or in the film world, they're just called LUTs. That's what I would encourage you to do is if you get to this point and you're finished and you're all polished on your project and you have everything that you want and it's perfect, this would be the last thing to add, is just make sure that your clips look really, really good with their colors. All right. Well, hope this helped you guys, and looking forward to seeing some of your projects in the future. Thank you.
While editing can be overwhelming because you're learning a new program, remember that it is an art form. So be creative and have fun.